Hello, I'm Dana Bash in Washington, where the State of our Union is looking overseas. After 8 long months, 4 Israeli hostages are back home safely. Family reunions and tears of joy after they were rescued from Hamas captivity by IDF forces in a special operation Saturday morning. The raid of 2 separate apartments in a central Gaza refugee camp took months of preparation, a military spokesman said, since Hamas moves hostages frequently and embeds them in areas packed with civilians like this refugee camp. Following reports of heavy shelling and artillery fire, Gaza hospitals said more than 200 people were killed in the operation. CNN has not been able to verify claims about the exact number of civilian deaths in what was the first successful hostage rescue since February. Here with me now from Paris, where he is traveling with President Biden, is National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Thank you so much for being with me. Let's start, of course, with the news about the rescue of 4 Israeli hostages inside Gaza. How specifically did the U.S. assist in the mission?
Well, Dana, the United States has been providing support to Israel for several months in its efforts to help identify the locations of hostages in Gaza and to support efforts to try to secure their rescue or recovery. I'm not going to get into the specific operational or intelligence-related matters associated with that because we need to protect those. I can only just say that we have generally provided support to the IDF so that we can try to get all of the hostages home, including the American hostages who are still being held.
So I understand that intelligence, U.S. intelligence assisted, but will you say anything about U.S. personnel, U.S. weapons?
Well, the one thing I can say is that there were no U.S. forces, no U.S. boots on the ground involved in this operation. We did not participate militarily in this operation.
Jake, Hamas claims that other hostages that they are holding inside Gaza were killed as a result of the IDF's mission. Is that true?
We have not seen that verified or confirmed. I believe that the Israelis have said they do not have any information to that effect. But of course, that is always a risk with all of these military operations. Hostages have been killed over the last 8 months. And so, Dana, the best way to get all of the hostages home and to protect Palestinian civilians is to end this war. And the best way to end this war is for Hamas to say yes to the deal President Biden announced and that Israel has accepted, which lays out a roadmap to an enduring ceasefire and the return of all hostages. That's what we are driving for, and that's what we're asking the world to call upon Hamas to accept.
Are you concerned at all, given what you just said, that the ball is in Hamas's court right now, that the rescue that happened on Saturday will make it so that Hamas might walk away from the negotiating table?
It's a legitimate question. It's hard for me to put myself in the mindset of a Hamas terrorist. We don't know exactly what it is that they're going to do. But the basic bottom line here is straightforward. To bring an end to this war, to get the hostages home, to get the full scope of humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people in a safe and effective way, we need this deal. And all of the people all over the world, in the United States and in countries everywhere who have been calling for a ceasefire, they need to train their attention on Hamas and put the pressure on, because this is the way to resolve this issue. And whatever the calculus is of Hamas coming out of this weekend, the reality remains the same. This is the only credible path forward, and Hamas should say yes.
Any word, either from Hamas or through Hamas's intermediaries, about their stance vis-a-vis the ceasefire deal that the president endorsed a little bit more than a week ago, since what happened yesterday?
Well, we've heard a lot publicly from Hamas over the last week. We've not seen any official statements since what happened with the hostage rescue operation. And the 2 key Arab mediators who are standing alongside the United States in this process, Qatar and Egypt, have not yet received any official word from Hamas representatives as to their stance on the deal. So we are awaiting that word, and it should come today. It should come this hour. Hamas should say yes which would immediately put in place a ceasefire and immediately begin the process of bringing hostages home. This is the answer that the world is looking for, and it's time to act.
Jake, I want to ask you a little bit more about that mission. And one of the questions is what we're hearing from Gaza. 2 different hospitals in Gaza say at least 236 people were killed as a part of the Israeli operation to rescue hostages. What is your understanding of how many Palestinian civilians, not militants, but civilians, were killed in that rescue mission?
We, the United States, are not in a position today to make a definitive statement about that. The Israeli Defense Forces have put out one number. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry has put out another number. But we do know this, Dana. Innocent people were tragically killed in this operation. The exact number we don't know, but innocent people were killed, and that is heartbreaking. That is tragic. The president himself has said in recent days that the Palestinian people are going through sheer hell in this conflict because Hamas is operating in a way that puts them in the crossfire, that holds hostages right in the heart of crowded civilian areas, that puts military emplacements right in the heart of crowded civilian areas. But every day that we see more innocent people lost is another horrible, awful, tragic day. And you know, our hearts in the United States and across the world break for that. But there is only one answer to stop that from happening going forward, and that is a ceasefire and hostage deal that ends the military operations, brings the hostages home, and puts us in a position to give the Palestinians an opportunity for a better future for their people.
And last, just about the mission, you don't want to specifically say how the U.S. was involved, which I understand, but just broadly, big picture, no one can deny the amazing news of seeing these innocent civilians who were finally brought back to their families from Gaza after being held there for 8 months. But is the U.S. comfortable with the way that the Israelis carried out the mission?
Look, Dana, why is President Biden going out publicly and calling for a ceasefire and hostage deal? It's because he thinks the best way to get all of the hostages home is in a deal where they're brought out diplomatically, where there's no need for military operations to get every last hostage out. So that would obviously be the best solution to this. In the absence of that, without Hamas saying yes to the deal, unfortunately, we are going to continue to see ongoing conflict and military operations in which Israel makes efforts to recover its citizens and, frankly, to recover American citizens. What we would much prefer to see is a ceasefire where the hostages come out peacefully. That is available. Israel has said yes to it. Now Hamas needs to say yes to it. That's where President Biden's full effort, energy, and attention is. And you heard yesterday from the French president here in Paris that France stands behind that, the world stands behind that, and Hamas should come to the table and say yes.
Well, you mentioned that you are in Paris. I have to, before I let you go, ask about the trip that you and, of course, the president is making to Europe, marking the 80th anniversary of D-Day. You are soon going to be part of the G7 in Italy. And the president gave a very big speech on democracy as he's trying to frame the 2024 presidential election here against Donald Trump as a discussion about the fate of democracy. Do you think democracy is in jeopardy?
The president said in his speech that democracy is at risk all over the world, from without and from within, to a greater extent now than it has been in a very long time. And what President Biden was arguing is that those brave men who stormed the beaches at Normandy, who scaled the cliffs at Pointe du Hoc, who liberated Europe and literally saved the world, they are calling us to step up to do our job in our time, which is to defend democracy, to stand with allies, to refuse to bow down to dictators, to push back against aggression. That's what President Biden is seeking to do. That's the message that he gave here today, and it's something he will carry forward as long as he is president.